HMS Sheffield was the second Royal Navy ship to be named after the city of Sheffield in Yorkshire. She was a Type 42 guided missile destroyer laid down by Vickers Shipbuilding and Engineering at Barrow-in-Furness on 15 January 1970. She was launched by Queen Elizabeth II on 10 June 1971 and commissioned on 16 February 1975. An explosion during construction killed 2 dockyard workers and damaged a section of hull which was replaced with a section from an identical ship, Hercules, being built for the Argentine Navy. The ship was part of the task force sent to the Falkland Islands during the Falklands War. She was struck by an Exocet air-launched anti-ship missile from a Super 8 Ondard aircraft belonging to the Argentine Navy on 4 May 1982 and foundered on 10 May 1982. Sinking. Sheffield was first detected by an Argentine Naval Aviation Patrol aircraft Lockheed SP-2H Neptune at 7:50 a.m. on 4 May 1982. The Neptune kept the British ships under surveillance, verifying Sheffield's position again at 8:14 and 8:43. 2 Argentine Navy Super 8 Ondards, both armed with Exocets, took off from Rio Grande, Tierra del Fuego at 9:45 and met with an Argentine Air Force tanker KC-130H Hercules at 1000 hours. At 10:35, the Neptune climbed to 1,170 meters and detected a large and 2 medium-sized contacts at the coordinates 52 degrees 33 minutes 55 seconds south, 57 degrees 40 minutes 55 seconds west map. A few minutes later, the Neptune contacted both Super 8 Ondards with this information. Flying at very low altitude, around 10:50, both Super 8 Ondards climbed to 160 meters to verify these contacts, but, not finding any, decided to continue. 25 miles later they climbed again and, after a few seconds of scanning, the targets appeared on their radar screens. Both pilots loaded the coordinates in their weapons systems, returned to low level, and after last-minute checks, launched their AM-39 Exocets at 11:04 from 20 to 30 miles away from their targets. The Super 8 Ondards did not need to refuel from the KC-130 again, which had been waiting, and landed at Rio Grande at 12:04. Supporting the mission were an Argentine Air Force Learjet 35 as a decoy and 2 IAI Daggers as the KC-130 escorts at approximately 10 a.m. On 4 May, Sheffield was at Defence Watch's second-degree readiness. As part of the British task force dispatched to the Falkland Islands during the Falklands War, Sheffield had relieved her sister Coventry as the latter was having technical trouble with her Type 965 radar. Sheffield and Coventry were chatting over UHF. Communications ceased until an unidentified message was heard flatly stating, "Sheffield is hit." The flagship, Hermes, dispatched the escorts Arrow and Yarmouth to investigate, and a helicopter was launched. Confusion reigned until Sheffield's Lynx helicopter unexpectedly landed aboard Hermes carrying the Air Operations Officer and Operations Officer. Confirming the strike, Sheffield picked up the incoming missiles on her Type 965 radar, and the operations officer informed the missile director, who queried the contacts in the ADAWS-4 fire control system. The launch aircraft had not been detected as the British had expected, and it was not until smoke was sighted that the target was confirmed as sea-skimming missiles. 5 seconds later, an Exocet hit Sheffield amidships, approximately 8 feet above the waterline on Deck 2, tearing a gash in the hull. The other missile splashed into the sea half a mile off her port beam. Damage caused by the missile impact severed the high-pressure fire main on board. The resultant fire caused by burning propellant ignited diesel oil from the ready-use tanks in the engine room, and other inflammable materials used in the ship's construction. These fires burned unchecked for a number of days after the ship was abandoned. The Exocets were fired from two Super 8 Ondards launched from Rio Grande, Tierra del Fuego, Naval Air Base. The aircraft were piloted by Teniente Armando Mera and Capitan de Fragata Augusto Bedacarats, who commanded the mission. Such was the lack of warning, there was no time to engage in defensive maneuvers, leading to a change in British policy whereby any Royal Navy vessel that suspected it might be under missile attack would turn toward the threat, accelerate to maximum speed and fire chaff to prevent a ship being caught defenseless again. The code word used to start this procedure was handbrake, which had to be broadcast once the signal of the Agave radar of the Super 8 Ondard was picked up. The MOD Board of Inquiry on the sinking of the Sheffield concluded that evidence indicates that the warhead did not detonate. Some of the crew and members of the task force believed that the missile's 165-kilogram warhead had detonated upon impact. This was supported by a MOD reassessment of the loss of the Sheffield, which reported in summer 2015. In a paper delivered to the RENA Warship Conference in Bath in June 2015, it was concluded that the Exocet warhead did detonate inside Sheffield, with the conclusion supported by analysis using modern damage analysis tools not available in 1982 and evidence from weapon hits and trials conducted since the end of the Falklands campaign. Irrespective of this, the impact of the missile and the burning rocket motor set Sheffield ablaze. Some accounts suggest that the initial impact of the missile immediately crippled the ship's onboard electricity generating systems. But this only affected certain parts of the ship, which caused ventilation problems. The missile strike fractured the water main, preventing the anti-fire mechanisms from operating effectively, and thereby dooming the ship to be consumed by the raging fire. After the ship was struck and as her crew were waiting to be rescued, Sub-Lieutenant Carrington Wood led the crew in singing, "Always Look on the Bright Side of Life," from Monty Python's Life of Brian. Over the 6 days from the 4th of May 1982, 5 inspections were made to see if any equipment was worth salvaging. Orders were issued to shore up the hole in Sheffield's starboard side and tow the ship to South Georgia. However, before these orders were effected, the burnt-out hulk had already been taken in tow by the Rothesay-class frigate Yarmouth. The high seas that the ship was towed through caused slow flooding through the hole in the ship's side. This was the cause which eventually took her to the bottom. The ship sank at 53 degrees 04 S, 56 degrees 56 W on the 10th of May 1982, the first Royal Navy vessel sunk in action since World War II. 20 of her crew died as a result of the attack. The wreck is a war grave and designated as a protected place under the Protection of Military Remains Act 1986. The sinking of Sheffield is sometimes blamed on a superstructure made wholly or partially from aluminium, the melting point and ignition temperature of which are significantly lower than those of steel. However, this is incorrect as Sheffield's superstructure was made entirely of steel. The confusion is related to the US and British navies abandoning aluminium after several fires in the 1970s involving ships that had aluminium superstructures. The sinking of the Type 21 frigates Antelope and Ardent, both of which had aluminium superstructures, probably also had an effect on this belief, though these cases are again incorrect and the presence of aluminium had nothing to do with their loss. The fires on Sheffield and other ships damaged by fire caused a later shift by the Royal Navy from the nylon and synthetic fabrics then worn by British sailors. The synthetics had a tendency to melt onto the skin, causing more severe burns than if the crew had been wearing non-synthetic clothing. The official report into the sinking of the Sheffield, disclosed in 2006 under UK Freedom of Information laws after an extensive campaign by XRN personnel, severely criticised the ship's fire-fighting equipment, training and procedures and certain members of the crew. Commanding officers 1973 to 1975. Captain Robin Heath RN. 1975 – 1976. Captain Michael Prest RN. 1976 to 1978. Captain Sandy Woodward RN. 1978 – 1979. Captain Christopher Argles RN. 1979 to 1982. Captain Peter Erskine RN. 1982 to 1982. Captain James Salt RN.